Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over an upcoming potential winter storm for much of the northern plains through the Great Lakes and then into the northeast and potentially into the mid-Atlantic. We'll have to see exactly how this plays out. We're going to be going over what some of the models are showing, and they have actually shifted back further to the north, especially with two different models that I've been seeing. The Icon model, which is the German one, and then also the Canadian model have both shifted northward, and also the GFS model is starting to shift further to the north. We're going to go over what the European, the GFS, the Canadian, and also what the German model are showing with this event. And we're going to be breaking down what I'm thinking for this event, just my early thoughts on this. And it is still about 3 or 4 days out, so we still have a lot that could change. And I'll probably have at least my snowfall forecast for the northern plains portion of the system probably by Friday or so. That's when I should have my forecast out for that area. So here's what the current National Weather Service page looks like. We have some wind advisories in the light brown and some high wind warnings in the in kind of the golden color, and that's scattered throughout the western U.S. and then into the northern plains. We also have some more wind advisories back through North Carolina and Virginia, with some winter weather advisories through parts of West Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania, and a little bit more winter weather advisories for southwestern Texas, as well as some winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories for western Alaska right there. But other than that, it is actually quite a quiet day. You do have a bit of lake effect moving off of the Great Lakes, and you did see a couple of those snow showers make its way fairly far to the south, and we do have quite a bit of wind moving especially through the eastern half of the country today. But other than that, we really don't have much going on in terms of weather, except for the system that's going to be coming out of the western U.S. So let's break this down, and let's start off with your European model. This is the overnight run of the European model. The daytime run is just coming out, so I'm not able to show that to you just yet. But as that comes out, I'm definitely going to be looking at it. Unfortunately, I won't be able to include it in this video, but I would assume that this would move back further to the north because the overnight runs of all these models were further south, and now we're seeing that the daytime runs are further to the north. Kind of like the trend that we've been seeing recently where they keep on going back and forth. I think we'll have another 2 or 3 cycles of model runs where they go back and forth, and then eventually they'll kind of stick to one idea, and we'll get more of a conclusive idea of what may happen. Now, I'm not really focusing on where that rain snow line sets up or where does the heaviest snow fall. I'm mainly looking at where do the air masses play out. So here's where your high pressure is. This is going to be very, very important. Here's where your low pressure is, and it's kind of a mess over the western U.S. We have one that's near Colorado and Wyoming, another one back through Nevada, and those are going to be back-to-back systems. And then also something that you have to pay attention to is this northern piece of the jet stream. This may dislodge this high pressure and push it further to the north, or it may just kind of dissipate and this high pressure could just stay there, and that might be definitely a bigger thing that we have to pay attention to. So let's start moving through what the European model is showing. Here would be by Saturday, and then here would be by Sunday. We're looking at more of that snow expanding to the northern plains. We see that northern piece of the trough moving through parts of Ontario, Canada, bringing in some snow further to the south into the Great Lakes, and then you're seeing all of that warmer air with some moisture being pulled up through the southern plains and up into parts of the Great Lakes. Here would be by Sunday evening, and we're looking at that trough and that generally that colder air from that high pressure, which is by this point all the way up in James Bay, Canada, which is all the way up there, but it's squishing in some of that colder air further to the south. So ahead of the system, you do have some cold air in place. Now, you start to see that this system does start to form. It starts to kind of develop a little bit more over Oklahoma and Texas by this point. Here's where your low pressure is, and you can see some of that snow setting up further to the north. Now, something that, again, I did point this out yesterday, something that might keep this a little bit colder is that you don't have a straight southern flow because you're going to be trying to develop another offshore low pressure system somewhere off here. You might actually turn these winds eastward, and aloft they'll actually be coming out of the west. So as long as you're not getting a southerly wind flow, that'll keep your temperatures much, much colder than what they would be if you had that southerly wind flow. snow, and that should allow a lot more cold air to press in, and also a lot more snow to potentially fall, depending on exactly how this tracks. And of course, there's still so much that can change. This would be by Monday, and we're looking at this system moving eastward. A lot of rain, potentially a little bit of severe weather further to the south. And as we get closer to the event, we might talk about that severe weather threat a little bit more. We are dealing with a narrow line, probably about 50 to 100 miles wide in terms of that line of snow, where you are dealing with fairly moderate snowfall. This would be by Tuesday, and you can see how the European model, what it does with this is that you have that high pressure. It's all the way up here, but we're seeing that it's trying to elongate and actually form another high pressure right around here. So we are dealing with a pressing of that cold air, and that cold air is also dry air. So that dry air is pressing in on that system from the north, and that's suppressing it further to the south. What we've seen is that high pressure has let up in the recent daytime runs. Again, this is the overnight run of the European. The daytime run is just coming out as I'm recording. So I would assume that this, or I'm predicting, and I think it will probably move further to the north on the daytime run. And that's just my prediction for this, just because of how the other model runs have been handling this information and how they've played this out. But if this were to be the case, you would definitely have a bigger storm for the mid-Atlantic, especially for these regions around Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, and into southern Pennsylvania. Those areas would be getting a fairly decent storm. This would be by Tuesday morning, and then it's out of here by Tuesday night, according to the European model. So here's what the GFS model is showing, and you can see that we have more of that snow and rain showers over the western United States. We see two different systems. Again, we have one back through here and another one up through the central and northern Rockies, and we can already tell, even though we're just focusing in on the western United States, you can tell the general shape of that colder air that's pressing into the eastern United States because of that cold air mass in place. As we move this forward, here would be by Saturday, it's starting to move into South Dakota, North Dakota, Nebraska, and then here would be by Saturday night. And let's kind of pause it right here and let's break down what's happening. So we have this cold air pressing in from the north, so we have our high pressure, which is up here in central Canada by this point. So you have cold, dry air as well pressing in further to the south. We have our low pressure right here, and ahead of this, we have warm and also moist air being pulled up ahead of that, so we are getting a little bit of moisture to be pulled in. Now, as we play this forward, here to be by Sunday, and then moving through the day on Sunday, it's heading eastward into the Great Lakes with some light to maybe even moderate snowfall at times, according to this model. We're seeing that low pressure all the way down into Texas and Oklahoma, and I will warn you, the GFS, like we've seen before, has a warm and also a warm bias, and also likes to kind of keep these storms a lot weaker than what they actually are. So I would definitely increase some of the colder air on this model and kind of add a little bit more cold air and more snow than what you're seeing. And also, it will most likely be stronger than what you're seeing on this model as well. It does like to weaken these storms even more than they actually should be, and usually does underperform what these storms. So here would be by Monday, and then here would be by Monday evening, and we're seeing a very light wave of showers moving through parts of the Northeast, and that would really be the rest of your system. You're not dealing with a lot, and then you see a little bit of showers move through some of the central plains, and other than that, the GFS takes this out to sea. And I don't think this is a very likely situation, mainly because you have a 996 low pressure, and although if you did move it back a little bit, it was weaker, but still, it's a fairly decent low pressure. You have an area of storms, and you have cold air just to the north. It doesn't make sense that this would be that suppressed further to the south in this type of shape that the GFS wants to play out, where you have that high pressure. This is more of a zonal east to west flow, meaning that this storm would likely not pass through North Carolina and southern Virginia. It would likely go through northern Virginia into Delaware and Maryland, and if it does that, it would have a lot more of that snow on that northern end. So it really doesn't make sense what the GFS is doing, and I really think that as you get closer to the event, the GFS is going to probably sort itself out, and it probably will eliminate a little bit of that warmer bias that it's showing. It really is underdeveloping this storm compared to everything else that I'm seeing, and also it's having a lot more warm air being put into the system. Now, here would be what the Canadian model is showing, and this is probably one of the more robust models, and then I'll show you what the Icon model is showing for snowfall. So here would be what the Canadian model is showing, we have that high pressure in place, but notice where your high pressure is. If we notice before, we still do have that high pressure up in Canada, but we actually have another one up through the northern plains. And if this happens, you're having a much colder scenario, and also you have more moisture up with the system, because the Canadian model also does overdo some of these systems. It really does like to outperform what actually happens and spin up these storms a little bit more than they actually should. So you want to also take a grain of salt with the Canadian. This is probably not the most accurate model, and you probably, although it might be accurate in terms of track, sometimes it does overdevelop some of these systems, and it does overdo cold air at times with some of these storms. So here would be by Saturday and moving through into Sunday. We're dealing with that snow through the Great Lakes and the northern plains. We're dealing with that warm, moist air being pulled through the central and southern plains. And then you continue to see through Sunday and into even Monday, that system is still developing. We have that cold air moving through the eastern U.S. We still have that high pressure up in Canada right here. And we have some of that colder air dipping into the northeast with some more snow back through some of the northern plains and into the Great Lakes. As you play this forward, you continue to see a little bit of snowfall and mixing start to head into parts of the northeast, the northern Ohio Valley, and back through into areas like Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, and Nebraska. And then that system rides through into Kentucky, West Virginia, and then moves across into the Atlantic Ocean and kind of redevelops offshore. And you're still dealing with quite a bit of snowfall moving through much of the northeast there, and it's still lingering through Tuesday, and then it's pretty much out of here by Wednesday. So let's start talking about some of those snowfall totals from this event. And it's not really important to look at the exact snowfall totals, because those are of course going to change. It's more of a tool to see where did the models kind of put the biggest footprint of snowfall. So for example, in this area of purple and pink, that's where you can tell that the European model showed the heaviest snowfall. In some of those blues, that's where it's showing the lighter snowfall. So not really to look at the exact totals, more to look at a generalized footprint of this and where would the most impacts be according to this model. You can see two distinct areas. You have one back through here into Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, and then another one back through into the mid-Atlantic. Again, the European was more of a southern track. Here's what the GFS is showing, and again, it has a lot through the northern plains, but you're really scratching your head here through the northeast, where you have basically nothing, and all that snow through the interior northeast is not from that system. It's all from lake effect snow throughout the week, so it's not even from that system. And I don't think this is very likely. We've seen the GFS do this many times throughout this winter so far, where it ends up weakening the system, and then you actually do see snow out of it. So definitely take this with a huge grain of salt. I think you will end up seeing some decent accumulation somewhere over the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, or the Northeast out of this. I don't think the GFS solution is quite too accurate. Here's what the Icon model is showing, and again, it is closer to what the Canadian model is actually showing, but it's actually a little bit further south than what the Canadian was showing. You're dealing with that stripe, again, maybe 50 to 100 miles wide, that moves from northern Missouri through into New Jersey and about southern upstate New York into Long Island there. So it's a thin area of snow, but it covers a wide range of areas through multiple states, and you can definitely tell where the heaviest snowfall did end up falling according to this German Icon model. And then let's look at another model. Here's the European ensemble. So this is taking an average of a bunch of models and compressing it together to show you where the models think the highest chance of seeing some snowfall is. You can see one area of higher probability through Iowa, northern Illinois, northern Indiana according to this model, and then another area through the northeast right here where it also has higher chances of seeing some snowfall. So that's definitely a good sign if you do like cold and snow, that these models, even though some of the models are going a little bit rogue and they're kind of showing not so much snowfall, most of the ensemble members and most of the general kind of averaged out models are showing still some snowfall, and that does give me confidence that some of these areas will end up seeing somewhere a decent accumulation. Where exactly is still what we're trying to figure out. And here's what the Canadian model is showing, and you can see that wide area of 6+ inches of snowfall. And again, it's not important that 6+ inches, that's going to still change. It's mainly a good tool to use to look at where did that heaviest snowfall land, and you can see that is a very thin area of heavy snowfall that's going to fall, so it is going to be very marginal, and you will have a lot of differences to look at. Here's one tool that I do like to use, and I think it is quite useful. This is the Weather Prediction Center's chances of seeing at least 0.25 inch of liquid equivalent of snow, which basically is around 2.5 inches of snowfall or more. And this is their probability of that happening. So you can see in the light green, that's 10 to 30%, 30 to 50% in the dark green, 50 to 70% in those blues, in the dark blue. And we're looking at for Saturday, we have a decent chance, especially over the northern plains there, where you see that upper trough move from Canada and kind of link up with another system further to the south. So you end up seeing a little bit of snow down here, and then here to be by Sunday, and then here to be by Monday. And this is when areas of the pretty much from Kansas to Nebraska eastward into New England start to get into some of that snowfall, where you have a generalized 10 to 50% chance of seeing some snowfall. And when they do put out that 10 to 30% chance, it does sound like a low chance, but when I'm utilizing that tool, it's more of a indication that there is a chance, there is that possibility. And when they put it out on their day 6 outlook, they only go out 7 days. So when they're putting it out on the day 6, that means that they have a decent probability. It's probably likely that some of these areas will see some snowfall. They're just trying to pin down how much snowfall is it, where exactly is it falling. So even if you're just in that 10 to 30% chance, that's still a decent chance, especially on the day 6 outlook. You're going to see with every day that we get closer, those amounts will increase and increase as they get more confidence in the system. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. It is a bit of a longer one, but we had a lot of information to cover. If you did enjoy it, please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.